Yat parikshit rishabha Pandunam anuprichati Anupurvyena tatsarvam Akhyatum upachakrame Yat parikshit rishabha Pandunam anuprichati Anupurvyena tatsarvam Akhyatam upachakrame Yat parikshit rishabha Pandunam anuprichati Anupurvyena tatsarvam Akhyatam upachakrame. Word for word translation. Yat, whatsoever. Parikshit, the king. Rishabha, the best. Pandunam, in the dynasty of Pandu. Anuprichati, goes on inquiring. Anupurvyena, the beginning to the end. Tat, all those. Sarvam, fully. Akhyatum, to describe. Upachakrame, he just prepared himself. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. He also prepared himself to reply to all that King Parikshit had inquired from him. Maharaj Parikshit was the best in the dynasty of the Pandus, and thus he was able to ask the right question from the right person. Purport. Maharaj Parikshit asked many questions, some of them very curiously, to know things as they are. But it is not necessary for the master to answer them in the order of the disciples' inquiries, one after the other. But Sukadeva Goswami, experienced teacher that he was, answered all the questions in a systematic way as they were received from the chain of disciplic succession. And he answered all of them without exception. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the second canto, 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Questions by King Parikshit. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patinam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we have read the concluding verse of this 8th chapter, titled Questions by King Parikshit. And now Sukadeva Goswami is going to begin answering. And as we've been hearing for the last 2 verses, Prabhupada makes that famous, he writes in the purport that a Vishnu Rata should always hear from a Brahma Rata. So Vishnu Rata is? Who's Vishnu Rata? Maharaj Parikshit. And Brahma Rata is? Sukadeva Goswami. So Sukadeva Goswami, by his own example, as it is said here in this purport, that a master is not obligated to answer the questions in the order that the disciple puts forward, but he or she answers the questions in a systematic way that is received from the chain of disciplic succession. So Sukadeva Goswami, by his own example, is showing his chastity to the parampara, to the disciplic succession. So in the teachers that come in a lineage, obviously the best example is our own Srila Prabhupada. So today I wanted to speak a little about, today happens to be the disappearance day of Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami and Raghunath Bhatt Goswami. And actually just 2 days ago was the appearance day of Madhvacharya. So in Bhagavad Gita, if you go through the disciplic succession, which is coming through in the line of Shiksha, we will see the disciplic succession. I'll read this here. Evam parampara praptam imam rajrasayo vidhu. Bhagavad Gita 4.2. This Bhagavad Gita as it is received through this disciplic succession. Krishna, Brahma, Narada, Vyasa. Who's after Vyasa? Madhva. So we'll speak a little today about Madhvacharya. So Madhvacharya met Vyasadeva in Badrikashram. There are 7 Chiranjeevis, 7 personalities who will be present on this planet up till the end of Vaivasvata Manu, the reign of Vaivasvata Manu, and Vyasadeva is one of them. Others are like Hanuman, Ashwatthama, Hanuman, I'll think of the others. So Madhvacharya happened to meet Vyasadeva, and from there he compiled his commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita and so on. So Madhvacharya, right? Who is this personality? And like how we were saying, Sukadeva Goswami is staying true to the disciplic succession. So similarly is Madhvacharya, and just one pastime of Srila Prabhupada, where he too, by his own mind, body and words, stayed true to the message that's being passed through from the disciplic succession. In one pastime, Prabhupada was asked, he was in Bombay or he was in India, and one gentleman who was happening to just be there in the audience, this gentleman was well versed in Shastra and knew of the different commentaries by different acharyas, and he went up to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I have read the commentaries by Madhvacharya, and they are actually not much different from what you have presented. Actually, when we read the commentary of Madhvacharya and we read your commentary, I find them to be similar. In other words, I find Madhvacharya in your commentaries. And so I was hearing this class, had the good fortune of hearing this class by His Grace Amarendra Prabhu. So What I'll be sharing is basically the nectar that's been that was spoken by him. So he was describing this pastime of Prabhupada, that when that person asked Prabhupada, now if it's some other author who's been asked that, you've actually taken this information from somewhere else, that author would just get so worked up. And Prabhupada said, if you find Madhvacharya in my commentary, then I find my work to be a success. I find that I would take that as an honor, that my work is now a success, and that I'm able to present Srila Madhvacharya's teachings in the modern day context, and which will actually reach out to every person on this planet. So Prabhupada himself displayed that, he would say, humility, but that chastity to the parampara. So now, Madhvacharya, he was born in town of Udupi in South India, and this was roughly about 750, 770 years ago. So quite a long time ago. Obviously this was before the advent of Gauranga, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's quite interesting, his birth and his early life and the rest of his life, which is why we speak about such personalities, because just by merely speaking about them, we get that seed of, our bhakti lata, our seed of bhakti is nourished. We are able to get the mercy and blessings of these personalities. So, he was born to two saintly Brahmin couple. Father's name was Narayana Bhatta. And actually, if you want more information, it is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 9, verse 245. So, there's a very good summary of the pastimes of Madhvacharya. So, he was born to these two parents, and as the pastime goes, the husband and wife, Narayana Bhatta and his wife, were very pious, were very devoted, were a devoted couple. They lost their first two children at a very early age, or maybe they left the planet as soon as they were born. That detail I don't have. So they underwent a very strict vrata. And what was their vrata? To drink, every day they just drank a little bit of milk at the temple of Ananteshwar in South India. Do you recall where else is this fast or this vrata of drinking milk is mentioned in the Bhagavatam? Canto 8. Who does this? Aditi? Payovrata? When prior to asking for Vamanadev's appearance, but Payovrata worship is actually mentioned in Canto 8. So this couple underwent that severe fast, that severe vrata. For 12 years, that's all they would do. And when I was reading it, I said, oh my God, when I thought that just one Pandav Nijal Ekadasi every year is such an austerity. Usually the week before Pandav Nijal Ekadasi, I'll tell Mandra Prabhu, I won't be there at Bhakti Lounge for this week. Just excuse me. I'm preparing myself for this fast. And 1 week after that, I'll say, I'm too tired. I don't have the energy. But here you see, this parents of Madhvacharya, they did this fast for 12 years. And as a result, they worshipped Lord Balaram. They received a son who was an incarnation of Vayu, the wind god. And he was named as Vasudev. So now it's interesting because each of these personalities come in each of these different yugas. In Treta Yuga, Vayu comes as Angad, the son of Vali in the Ramayana. In the Dwapara Yuga, Vayu incarnates as Bhima, one of the Pandavas. And in Kali Yuga, Vayu incarnates as Madhvacharya. Similarly, it was interesting, I came to know of it yesterday. Prahlad Maharaj in Sati Yuga is Prahlad Maharaj. Do you know who he comes as in Dwapara Yuga? Uddhava. And in Kali Yuga, Tukaram, one of the saints in Maharashtra. Again, he had met Lord Chaitanya. So these personalities come and they visit and then they give us, they're here to shake us up and tell us, hey, get out of this material existence. Worship Lord Hari. So these are the different personalities who come, and similarly Madhvacharya has come in this day of Kali Yuga as Madhvacharya. So what's the meaning of the word Madhvacharya? His name that was given much later, but his early name was Vasudev. What is Madhu? Madhu. What does Madhu mean? Honey. In the context of his name, Madhva, he was the embodiment of blissful knowledge. Acharya. The Acharya who embodies blissful knowledge. So the early days of Madhvacharya. Madhvacharya was an infant when he was attacked by a big, very powerful snake, a serpent. And the snake attacked Madhvacharya, and he's just an infant. As soon as he saw the snake attacking him, he smashed the snake against a stone, the serpent against a stone with his foot, with his toe. He smashed it. And it said till date today, the imprints of that, of that instance is still found in Udupi. So some of us who have been to Udupi or will go to Udupi, when we go for Darshan, we can ask the devotees there to take us to that site where we find this particular pastime where he was crushed, basically he crushed the serpent. Again, being an incarnation of Vayu, and as we saw Hanuman, being also an incarnation of Vayu in Ram Leela, we see that, actually I'll take that, I'm sorry. Angad in Ram Leela is actually Prahlad Maharaj, and in Ram Leela, Vayu is, incarnation of Vayu is Hanuman. Sorry, just that correction. So, Vasudev, little Vasudev, was very playful and very mischievous. He'd be running around the school. He would be always, caught in a mischievous situation. So one day the teacher came, and the teacher caught hold of Vasudev and said, "You are so mischievous that you don't hear my lessons. And, you need to be disciplined." And Vasudev said, "No, I'm not mischievous. I know exactly what you say." And the teacher said, "No, you don't. You're just creating a ruckus." And Madhvacharya said, "Okay, I'll prove to you that I know every single thing you've taught." And from sunrise to sunset, Madhvacharya repeated every lesson that the teacher had said and every lesson that the teacher would say in the future. That was the promise of Madhvacharya. And the teacher said, "Okay, you don't belong in this Gurukul, please go." Please move on to higher, to some sort of higher education. His power and might were unfathomable. At the age of 6, his father had accumulated a lot of debt. He didn't have the means to pay for it. So he was in a lot of distress. So little Vasudev goes to him and says, "Father, what happened?" And he says, "Oh, I have all this debt. I don't know how will I pay." And Vasudev says, "Is that it?" Is that what's bothering you so much? He said, yes. Okay, I'll take care of it. He goes into the garden or into their place where they had grown little plants and trees, and he caught hold of certain tamarind seeds. And he took those tamarind seeds and went up to the person who the father owed the debt to, and he just put them in his hand. And he said, this is all you need, or you need anything else? And this person who was a debtor, or the creditor, when he saw the tamarind seeds coming into it, he's like, what is this child doing? But the moment the tamarind seeds left Madhvacharya's hand, and basically this person got possession of it, these tamarind seeds had converted into gold coins. And this person was like, wow, gold coins. And Madhvacharya or Vasudev said, is that it? Or you need anything else? He said, no, that's all I need. He said, okay, now go, leave us. Earlier I was saying how he recited every lesson that was spoken and that will be spoken in the future. So there's a pastime of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. How Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would attend classes at the university, would attend lectures, but he knew that what was being taught was just plain ignorance. So he would take his book, he would be studying poems or bhajans or writings by Narottam Das Thakur. He'd just be sitting there while the lecturer was actually, explaining something. He'd be sitting there, attending, just reading Narottam Das Thakur's offerings or his writings. One day the teacher came up to him and caught hold of Bhakti Saraswati Thakur. He said, you are being very disrespectful. You are not following what I'm teaching. And Bhakti Saraswati Thakur said, excuse me, what you're teaching is sheer ignorance. What I'm studying is pure knowledge, so don't disturb me. And the teacher said, you don't know what you're saying. You have not paid attention to any single word that I've said. And Bhakti Saraswati Thakur again looks up to him and says, okay. Again, same pastime. In the matter of few hours, he repeated and explained everything the teacher said from all different angles of vision. Plus, he gave him insights into what will be spoken in the future. And the teacher then said, okay. And Bhakti Saraswati Thakur said, now is it done? He said, I'm doing a favor to you by sitting in your lecture. So now you do a favor to me by letting me read what I'm doing. And just, please excuse me. And teacher said, yes, thank you. So, these are such personalities. So the pastime of him being attacked by a snake happened when he was an infant. The pastime of him converting those tamarind seeds into gold coin happened when he was 6 years old. And this pastime of him offering lessons at the school or at the Gurukul happened when he was 8 years old. So at the age of 10, he found the stick, or basically. Now we need to understand the context. During that time, the teachings of Shankaracharya were very prominent in all of India. And as we know from the history, the Lord chose to, the Shankaracharya is none other than Lord Shiva, coming in this age of Kali Yuga to just preach, in other words, a bogus philosophy. So there was bogus philosophy all around, and Madhvacharya advocated himself to fight against it. And actually, if you see, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took two principles from each of the four sampradayas. And from Madhva, he got these two principles, which is to fight Mayavad and preach Dvaita philosophy. What is Dvaita? Dual. The Jiva and Ishvara, or Krishna, are actually different from one another, in which the Jiva is the servant. We are servants, eternal servants of Krishna. So, bringing to that past my philosophy. Amrendra Prabhu was saying once a devotee or some personality came to Prabhupada and said, "You preach Dvaita philosophy, or you preach that, the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everything is, Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. Everything's one and different simultaneously. Similarly, we have our identities, even in the liberated state." But he said, your philosophy doesn't make sense, because when I see in nature, I see that there are different rivers that flow into the ocean and then they all merge into the ocean. Isn't that what philosophy is? Isn't that what it is? That we just become one? And he gave this analogy of the river forming to the ocean. And Prabhupada said, "Good try. What you've said, rivers forming into the ocean, but better than that is one becomes a fish who can flow from the river into the ocean, yet keep its identity. So, isn't that better?" And this person said yes. So he said, then that's what it is. Even in the liberated state, we keep our identities. We are always Jiva Swarupa Krishna Nitya Das. We are always servants of Krishna. And that is the ultimate or the absolute truth. So, as the pastime goes, Madhva Charya basically wanted to, Vasudev at that time, he was very, very, he wanted to fight this philosophy, defeat this philosophy of Sankaracharya. So he had the stick and he said, "I want to defeat the philosophy of Sankaracharya." So his father tells him, "My son, if you can make this stick turn into a tree, then maybe you'll be successful in defeating this philosophy of Sankaracharya." And Madhvacharya said, "Dad, is that it? Is all that it is? If I can get this stick to turn into a tree, that actually I'll be, that you think I'll be successful?" And his father says, "Yes." Madhvacharya said, "No problem." He broke that stick into 3 pieces, planted them as 3 seeds, and within no time, or maybe even instantly, 3 trees shot up. And then his father realized, okay, this is the Acharya who will be preaching Dvaita. And now again, there is an underlying message here, that one stick was converted into 3 and then shot up as 3 trees. Mayavads speak of Dvaita philosophy, which means Ekadanda. What does that Ekadanda mean? I am as good as God. But that Ekadanda becomes Tridanda, surrendering 3 danda, 3 sticks. What that actually means is I surrender to Krishna through my mind, body, and words. So, as soon as his father realized that, oh, my son is going to be a preacher, he said, okay, now it's time to get him married. And we see that in the life of Raghunath Das Goswami too, when his parents saw that he was very detached from material life, they got him married. So as he wanted to, they arranged for him to get married, but Madhvacharya left the house and he went to the ashrama of Achyuta Preksha, who trained him and gave him sannyas. He took sannyas at the age of 12 and he was known as Purna Pragya Tirtha. And actually, if you see in the if you go to Udupi Madhvacharya's Math, basically they have 8 monasteries, 8 maths, or 8, like I said, monasteries. And if you see the acharyas of those maths, they all basically take sannyas either when they're 8 or 10 or 12 or 15, or in other words, before they reach that age where they feel, oh, let's make a decision or such. Before that itself, they take sannyas. In fact, one of the most prominent acharyas of the Madhvacharya lineage, Pejavar Swami, he actually left this planet, I think not too long ago. He was a very ardent follower, and he appreciated what Srila Prabhupada did. And just, I think, recently, a few years ago, some of the leaders of ISKCON went to see Pejawar Swami, and Pejawar Swami was delighted to receive all these devotees, and he said that, and he was glorifying Srila. He spoke for 1 hour continuously in glorification of Srila Prabhupada. And he said Madhvacharya had said that in this age of Kali Yuga there will be a great personality who will spread the message of Krishna in every town and village. And that is none other than A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He said there was no one ever like Prabhupada, there will no one ever be. So he went on glorifying Srila Prabhupada. And he said how wonderful is it that the disciples of Prabhupada are carrying on this message in the same spirit that Srila Prabhupada did. So this personality, Pejawar Swami, who we are referring to here, took sannyas at the age of 7. And he remained sannyas until the age of, I think, whatever last year, I think 85 or 90, in the 80s that he left his body. So that's him taking sannyas. And actually, Madhvacharya, he went to Badrikashrama to meet Vyasadeva. Like I said, Vyasadeva is one of the Chiranjeevis. And, now it's interesting, I have never been there, but if we ever get a chance, if someone has been, or if you go to the ashram of Vyasadeva, and some devotees have told me, and I think they took pictures too. So obviously Vyasadeva is still there, but he'll reveal himself to us only if we are qualified or some pure mercy. But there's a picture of his little cave. And it is said that that cave is just, when you enter the cave, you'll just feel like it's just, you can see the structure is like as though there's just books piled up one against another. So Vyasadeva is, it's like a library. So he met Vyasadeva, he wrote the commentary on Bhagavad Gita, and then he started writing he wrote Mahabharata as well. And when he came back to Udupi, one day Madhvacharya was just on the shore of the sea, just meditating on Krishna. And from a distance he sees a boat that is stuck in the middle of the ocean, to wherever his vision extends to. He saw a boat stuck there. And by some arrangement he could speak, or he could, the person rowing the boat, or that ship, the person in charge of the vessel could communicate to Madhvacharya, I'm stuck here, please help me. And the boat was stuck because there was something very heavy in the boat that was just, didn't make it move. And what does Madhvacharya do? He takes his dhoti and just 3 times, just like fans his dhoti, and then there's a traction of wind created, and then the boat then comes closer to the shore. And as the boat comes closer to the shore, the owner of that vessel, that boat, is feeling so grateful to Madhvacharya that he says, I need to give you a gift. Please take something from this ship. And Madhvacharya then goes into the ship, or into the boat, and he finds a big lump of gopi chandan. And he says, I'll take this with me. And it is said it was so heavy that it needed 30 people to be carrying. And Madhvacharya just he takes it and he goes. He's like, I'm taking this. And he said as he's walking towards it, the gopi chandan falls on the ground and it breaks. And there's a beautiful deity of Udupi Krishna, or Krishna. And the deity is basically holding a stick in one hand and a lump of food in the other. And actually there's a history to this deity. In Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka, this was spoken by Marendra Prabhu, so I'm just repeating it. And he said that Devaki comes to Krishna, to see Krishna in Dwarka, and she says, you were a little child, and just a matter of a few hours, or just in a very short moment, you just left Mathura to go to Vrindavan. I've never seen that childish form of yours. And Krishna, as he is Bhakta Vatsala, wanting to reciprocate the desires of everyone, he transforms into a little baby, and he's performing those pastimes right then in front of Mother Devaki's eyes. And it's so blissful, so relishable. At that very moment, Rukmini, one of the queens of Krishna, enters into the palace where this is happening. And Krishna is like, oh. And she's like, no, I also want to see those baby pastimes of you. And Krishna is like, I can't be, I can only be in a coffin in front of my mom as a baby. I can't, do those. He's, bashful, and he's saying, no. And then he says, okay. Then he gives her a deity, which is this, in the form of Udipi, Krishna. Or, just in the form of a little child holding a stick and a lump of food, and he gives it to worship, and she worships it faithfully. And as time goes on, towards the end of Krishna's pastimes, as Krishna leaves, winds up his pastimes, and towards the end, Arjuna is asked to take the queens, to transport the queens. At that very moment, this deity is basically accompanying them, and one thing leads to another. This deity is then gets buried under a place called Gopi Kund. So this deity remained there for 4,500 or 4,700 years that the deity was actually there, only to be later on by some divine, by Krishna's arrangement, that this Gopi Kund becomes Gopi Chandan, and then it's being transported. And it was basically installed by Madhvacharya in Udupi, in the Udupi Math. So, even Madhvacharya's departure was actually very glorious. He was in the Math, he was speaking on the glories of Krishna, and actually it said all the demigods were present there just hearing from him. And he left this planet at that very moment, and he gave instructions to how to maintain the worship of Udupi Krishna, and instructions that are beneficial for all of us, and that's being carried on till to date. So, how we see here Sukadeva Goswami being faithful to the parampara. Similarly, we find personalities, and today we discussed pastime of Madhvacharya, who stayed faithful to the parampara and achieved so much of being the instrument of Krishna's message to this world. So similarly, even for us, and I think on Sunday, was it that Bhava Bhushan Prabhu spoke, and he was speaking on the potency of the Guru Parampara, and he was speaking on how prior to Prabhupada's arrival there were so many editions of the Bhagavad Gita, but none of them resulted in someone becoming a devotee of Krishna. But as soon as Prabhupada came, devotees, were being there were devotees joining, and it just, everything seemed to happen at the right time and at the right place. Actually, I'll just end with this. Yesterday I was speaking, this new person who happened to join one of the introductory courses in Bhagavad Gita. And she's Australian, but her partner is Fijian Indian. And she was saying how her partner was in a lot of distress and called his mom to see if there was any spiritual guidance that she could give. And she said, no, I myself can't give you anything, but there is Bhagavad Gita that you can take shelter of. And he said, okay, how can I get it? She's like, no, you don't get it, the Bhagavad Gita will come to you. when you're ready and just wait for it. Similarly, once a devotee told me that they threw the Bhagavad Gita down the window and the person picked that Bhagavad Gita, whoever it was, picked up the Bhagavad Gita and gave it back to them. The Bhagavad Gita is so heavy that it'll carry you. So with this person that I was speaking to yesterday, he went around looking for he just said he couldn't wait to get a Bhagavad Gita. And all of a sudden, from nowhere, he parked his car and he was walking and someone tapped him at the back. And he said, yes. And this person asked this gentleman, you seem very disturbed. What can I help you with? And this person just didn't want to say anything. He said, wait a minute. There you go. Bhagavad Gita as it is. This is for you. And he just started crying. He's like, how do you know I needed it? He's like, that's for you. You need it, keep it, give whatever you can. And he just, obviously, so that goes on to say the potency of the Guru Parampara, that how Krishna chooses, or Krishna basically is manifesting his presence through the presence of his pure devotees. So similarly for us, Srila Prabhupada, and also going back to Guru Parampara, Madhvacharya and so on. So they're all wanting for us to be the instruments, and to the extent that we remain faithful to the Parampara, to the extent we'll be successful. Right? I will end here if anyone has any question or comment. Chiranjeevis. Yeah. Well, I just know basically Ashwatthama, Vyasadev, Hanuman, Vibhishan, yep, Bali, Kripacharya, yep. Parashuram, yes. So they'll be here until the end of this Vaivasvata Manu. Then I know towards the end. I know the reign of the Manus is mentioned towards the end of the second canto. Chiranjeevis, I've heard it from different devotees, different classes and stuff, but okay. Okay. Well, I heard it. Okay. So that's object of research then. Amarendra Prabhu. Oh, glories to Amarendra Prabhu. Kantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Nita Go Premanande.